Have you ever wondered what it was like for a Black female entrepreneur in the 19th century? Well, let's talk about it. Eleanor Eldridge was born in 1785 in Warwick, Rhode Island. Her mother, Hannah Prophet, was Narragansett Native American and African, and her father was African, Robin Eldridge. Robin was tricked into slavery with his whole family in the Congo when they were told they were boarding a ship for trade, when in actuality it was a slave ship set to take them to America. So in February of 1778, the state of Rhode Island opened up enlistment to enslaved Black men. They were offered 200 acres of Mohawk country and their freedom. So Robin joins, as well as his brother. And it's only from February to June that the state allows this, and roughly 150 men join. They are paid in continental money, which everyone who joined was paid that, which was worthless at the end of the American Revolution. But he never received any of that 200 acres. He did, however, have his freedom. This is when he married Hannah Prophet, and they settled in Warwick, Rhode Island, where they have 9 children, 5 of which make it to adulthood, 2 of those being our main person, Eleanor, and her brother, George. So fast forward to 1795, and Hannah, Eleanor's mom, dies. This is when Eleanor negotiates her first business contract. The Baker residents, who were the employers of Hannah, offered Eleanor lodging for a year if she worked for them. Eleanor negotiated 25 cents a week and that year of lodging. They accept, and Eleanor moves in for a year. In that year, she is in charge of the cows and the turkeys. At 11, she renegotiates her contract for 2 shillings a week. And she adds some household duties as well as spinning, and she learns to double weave. Very complicated. She stays for another 5 years. So by the age of 16, Eleanor is considered an expert at double weaving. She, like I said, does this for about 5 years. And around the age of 17, she leaves and goes to work for a gentleman named Captain Benjamin Green, where she spins for a year, and then she spends the next 8 years as a dairy woman. Being an expert at double weaving wasn't enough for Eleanor. She also becomes an expert at making cheese. And her cheese, for those 8 years, sells as premium cheese and at premium cost. So let's fast forward to 1812 whereabouts. Eleanor is 27 years old, and now she's going into business with her sister. They're in Providence, and they are whitewashing, spinning, weaving, nursing, washing, and making soap. Eleanor, as usual, becomes an expert at what she does, and her sister's soap does very well at the market. So Eleanor's in her 30s, and she's begun to invest in real estate. She builds on a few lots. She rents out those properties. The first one rents for $40 a year. The second one is bigger. It's on Spring Street, and it rents for $140 a year. This same house on Spring Street, she adds 2 new additions to the house. One addition is for herself, where she will stay permanently while she rents the larger house out to families. Now, during all of this time, her brother George is accused of getting into a fight and beating a white man from a prominent family in Rhode Island. He goes to court for it, and Eleanor, because of all of the professional work that she's done, all of the employers that she's worked for, she's able to collect 24 witnesses for her brother George, and George gets off. That is not the last time that Eleanor ends up in the court. The next time is in 1838, when she sues a white man for taking her property illegally. So Eleanor takes out a loan for $240 to add those additions to her house on Spring Street. The loan is paid for. It's not very much. It's 10% interest annually, and that's what she's paying for. Well, around the age of 46, about 1831-ish, Eleanor gets sick with typhus, and she wants to recover with family in Massachusetts. So her brother George takes her. But halfway there, they have to stop at a tavern because Eleanor is really sick. So George is in the tavern negotiating the rent for staying there overnight when two residents from Providence overhear the conversation. What they hear is that Eleanor's really sick. They go back to Providence with that news. And as gossip does, it snowballs. And it turns into really sick to gravely sick to dead. Now, the loan holder actually dies, and his brother takes over that loan. His brother hears about this and decides he's going to immediately take the property that has the lien on it for that $240 loan. What happens? Eleanor comes back. She discovers that somebody else is living in her house. So earlier I said that $240 plus 10% annual interest loan was not very much. Truth is, it was a lot. It was the 1830s. That was a lot of money, but not in comparison to the house that was taken. That house on Spring Street was sold for $1,700 illegally. In order to sell a house or to take possession of it from a default on a loan, you need to put up public notice. There was no public notice put up about an auction for that house, at least none that anyone saw. So Eleanor takes this case to court, and there she has 3 witnesses. Those witnesses say they never saw a single notice anywhere. But a corrupt sheriff, who's paid off by that loan holder, says that he put up leases. He put up the notice for that. And the judge agrees, and Eleanor loses the case. But Eleanor does not give up. So now we're back at our bookcase, where we started this whole conversation, because there are 2 books. 1, the memoirs of Eleanor Eldridge, and 2, Eleanor's second book. So what makes these books important is they were written to help Eleanor pay for her property. So the writer of these is Frances H. Green. She's a prominent white woman in the area in Rhode Island. She knows, as well as 9 other women who contribute to this book, they know Eleanor. Eleanor's worked for most of them. And the book is written, and inside this book, there is a passage. That passage says, "It is a wanton outrage upon the simplest and most evident principles of justice. But the subject of this wrong, or rather of this accumulation of wrongs, was a woman and therefore weak, a colored woman and therefore contemptible. No man ever would have been treated so, and if a white woman had been the subject of such wrongs, this whole city, nay, the whole country would have been indignant, and the actors would have been held up to the contempt that they deserve." It's 1838 when this book was published. And at the end of the publishing of this book, Eleanor went on a book tour, and she sold over 2,000 copies. That money was used to purchase in a settlement the property that was taken from her. Was she able to purchase it for $240, you ask? No, she had to purchase it for $2,100. She was ripped off, she was robbed, and the thieves got away with it. So what was the whole point of me telling you about this woman, her life story, just to end on a sad note? Well, she wrote a second book. Well, Frances Green wrote a second book. Eleanor never went to school, so she couldn't read or write. But Frances cared enough about her story to write 2 books for her to help her pay for the house to get back. In 1845, Eleanor dies. And she is the second wealthiest Black American in Rhode Island. Her worth is about $4,800. Again, why did I tell you this story? I told you because this is a story about a Black female entrepreneur in the 19th century. Her story may not be the most common one of that time, but it is one that none of us probably knew about, not many of us at least. I didn't until I started this research. And Eleanor is a perfect example of perseverance and strength of a Black female in the 19th century.